She takes about as much as she can take and has this horrific snap moment. She has this intoxicatingly addictive relationship with murder. And Sweetpea is born.
Someone's been a naughty girl.
It's always the quiet ones.
Well, we always say, like, it's what would happen if Dawn from The Office decided to go on a killing spree. Sweetpea is a darkly comic coming of rage about a wallflower
called Rhiannon, who is, let's say, overlooked. She is invisible. People don't see her, they don't notice her. She gets sort of constantly trodden on.
You're a bit, oh, la 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 la, ooh. You need to be, ah.
And it's very much about a woman who's trying to find her voice. She's kind of this wallflower
who develops an intoxicating, dangerous taste for murder.
And she sort of descends into murderous tendencies and is sort of trying to empower herself along the way.
She becomes more confident and she feels like finally people see her. And she has this power that's new to her, and as that happens, she starts to become, you know, more confident. She's winning at life. She's getting all the things that she wants until it all sort of blows up in her face.
It's a powerful message of finding yourself, but maybe don't.
Yeah, but like without killing.
Yeah. Ideally, you know.
Yeah, ideally.
Serious bit of kit you got there.
I've got a scoop for you. It's a murder.
Wasn't expecting that.
It was going to be a dark comedy, which immediately I'm like, yes. Very British, I think, to like take this quite heavy, intense subject and like make it funny. But also that they wanted to tell it sort of like Dexter, in the sense that we were going to conflict the audience. We were going to really confuse the audience morally.
We talked a lot about, I mean, the tone of the show is so key, and the kind of darkly comic, but with the kind of drama stakes elements, which was there in Kirstie's script from the start, and then I built a kind of visual mood board. But it felt like we were very much on the same page from the start in terms of like our references, like the Coen brothers, kind of Fargo. We kind of said if the Coen brothers came to Slough, film there,
God,
you know, that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Tonally, end of the, am I allowed to swear? End of the effing world. Didn't have to bleep it out, look at that. That's a really good one, tonally.
A little bit kind of end of the fucking world, slightly heightened, you know, but then kind of visually we kind of combined that with a bit of Fincher. It was kind of, so you want the thriller, but you've also got that kind of slight irreverence as well.
Dexter, obviously, is great. I think that's more maybe early days when we were thinking about how to tell the story, the impact we wanted the character to have on the audience. Towards the second half of the series, I looked at Villanelle from Killing Eve. I think that is one of the greatest characters ever written. She's incredible, Jodie's amazing. I think Villanelle's she's very playful, quite young in spirit, you know, got that childish quality, which is quite nice to see Rhiannon having a bit of fun second half of the series. So slightly elements of that. There's not that many female serial killers on screen, at least not ones within the same world that we were trying to accomplish.
And also in terms of like the story and character, touchstones like Fargo and Barry were really key to us, because it's like Barry does terrible things, but he's a really nice guy as well. So we wanted the audience to go on a journey with Rhiannon, and Martin Freeman in Fargo. You're like, he's kind of quite Rhiannon-esque in his character, and just like you go with him, you're like, yeah.
And I think
do the same.
with that, and like for me, it was that kind of Breaking Bad kind of emotional journey where like it's really complicated for the audience, because you start off and you feel for this person, you're rooting for them, and you want them to get what they want and stand up for themselves. But as it goes on, and the more the things they're doing are like, I'm not sure that's the way to do it, you know, you're challenged, and I think it kind of challenges you as an audience as to how much you will go with somebody and continue to empathise with them no matter what happens.
Have you done something different?
I'm not a victim. Not anymore.
It's based on an amazing book by C.J. Skews. She's done like a whole series of them. I read it and I was like, wow.
And I read the script, it's really brilliant, really funny. Read the books, loved the books. Books and the show are quite different, I will say. I'd say the show is more of like a prequel to the books. It's the making of Sweetpea. In the book, she's already like a fully fledged seasoned serial killer.
This is like, it was like a functioning serial killer. I really wanted to write something for ages about female violence, because I think audiences are quite uncomfortable with it, but we also want it, like I do as a viewer. And so I was really drawn to that, and also how she was doing these really extraordinary things, but she still really just loved a nice lasagna at the end of the day. Like she was like, she wanted her boyfriend to make her lasagna, and I was like, oh, I feel like this is a relatable serial killer. She's not, I don't know, stalking her prey wearing like a black polo neck. She's working in an office, nobody sees her. That's her superpower.
But I loved it, and I met Ella, the director, another Ella, and we got on really well, and it just felt very organic. And I've always wanted to produce and be on the other side of camera, and I produced a couple of shorts, directed a short. It's something I love doing, and I was really holding out for the right thing. I wanted to be able to contribute properly. I wanted to have loads of ideas and know that I could take this and run with it. I really just wanted to see if it was the right fit, and I think we both care so much about this project that if it wasn't the right fit, it wouldn't have happened. But we just got on like a house on fire and just started brainstorming and sort of couldn't stop, and just felt one of those like amazing serendipitous things. Hi, I'm Rhiannon Lewis. Sometimes I make a list of people who make me feel invisible.
I think Rhiannon is such an exciting character, and it's really intoxicating to watch someone, particularly a woman, just kind of go fuck it and kind of just like stop playing by the rules and stop trying to be liked and actually just like start taking what they want. And yes, she does it in a way that maybe isn't the way we should do it, but there's something really refreshing about that.
I did a lot of research into serial killers when I was researching this role, and one of the things I got really stuck on was, is Rhiannon a psychopath? And I don't think she is a psychopath. In End of the Effing World, he talks a lot about being a psychopath. So there's a lot of things I pulled from there, but they're not, 100%. St. Maud is another one, but I didn't watch that. I actually watched that quite recently. And I watched it recently being like, God, I wish I'd watched that before we started filming. But there's a lot of similarities between her and Rhiannon in that film as well.
We never really set out to make her likeable. Like, I feel like as a female writer in TV, that's something like I really rail against, because I think the most interesting characters are unlikable and really flawed. And so that's what we wanted to do with Rhiannon. But a word that was always in my mind when I was developing it was the every woman. We wanted people to look at Rhiannon and go, God, I felt like that. Someone's talked over me in a meeting. I've not got a job that I should have got because someone else has got it over me. Maybe and if you're a woman, it's often a man who's got it over you. And so that was really key for me when developing her, and finding that empathy. I don't think a character needs to be likeable. You just need to understand why they're doing things and relate to them in a certain way.
Yeah, and I think connected to that in the making of it, I think we had such a gift in Ella Purnell. I mean, she's such a talented actress, and also she cared really deeply about the show. And so she was really able to inhabit all of that kind of multifaceted nature of Rhiannon, because again, it was also really important that Rhiannon's not like a psychopath. She's not, and I feel like they're the kind of female killers we've seen. Yeah. And we wanted someone who was, like you said, could be any of us in a way, if pushed to breaking point, or if those circumstances had happened like that. And I think Ella captures that vulnerability, and I think that is what keeps you going with her for longer, because you do kind of care about her. You want her to find what she needs, but she's increasingly a bit scary as well. And so I think her performance was fundamental to that, and in general, like with the tone, it's like rooting everything in a place of truthfulness, so that our whole world feels kind of cohesive and unified, and that we can enjoy those contrasts between the comedy and the drama, but the comedy doesn't undermine the dramatic stakes, and the drama doesn't kind of get too grim or heavy.
This is going to sound bad. I'm just going to preface it with, murder's not okay, obviously. We all know this, hopefully. However, the snap moment at the end of the first episode, her first kill, was one of the most insane, terrifying, uncomfortable, challenging, and rewarding, cathartic, I've just thrown so many words at you, experiences of my life. So just like a human dictionary. So it's just so many things. I've never done anything like that before. I'm not talking about the actual stabbing, I'm talking about the emotional release that comes with that.
And we all knew that this moment we had to really sell that moment. It's the culmination of everything. And for me, it was one of the most exciting moments to film.
We decided the way we were going to map out that episode was that it sort of should feel like the pressure is building up. It's like a kettle that needs to release, you know, and you're sort of wondering the whole time she's on the edge, and you're thinking, how much can one person take? And you sense that there's, you know, it's a very sort of tight wire that's going to snap at any moment. It should feel like that. And so that scene was going to be highly emotional. I was really nervous, and there was obviously so many things to think about, you know. There's the technical elements of it, and I had this rubber body with blood bags, and I just stabbed the blood bags, and I got terrible aim, and I would miss the blood bags, and then it was cold, and there was rain bars, and it was in the middle of the night, and we were a mile end, and it was just so much to do. And then I wasn't getting there, and I wasn't getting it, and Ella is, again, so incredible. Cannot say enough fantastic things about her, but she really got me to that place of emotion. She said, I'm just gonna run the camera, we're gonna do this 10 minutes, and you're just gonna keep going, and you say whatever you want and you do whatever you want, and it's gonna feel weird, and you're just gonna keep going. And I think I went through every range of human emotion, and it was the hardest, craziest thing I've ever done in my life.
When you see that in her, everyone in the crew as well, it was just like, ooh, I've been really like feeling sorry for her, and she's so sweet, and now I'm a bit scared of her.
And then you snapped.
And it was the snap, it really was, and it really felt like that, and just like this raw, like animalistic, wild, completely uninhibited thing. And you know, at first I was embarrassed, I was self-conscious, and I was in my head, and I was so frustrated with myself because I knew I wasn't getting it, and then it just came out, and it was so cathartic. It was wild. I think I blacked out. It was just wild.
She was just such a pro, and she just had that, that we knew that she did, but it was all in there bubbling away, and it just came out so wonderfully. And one of the things I love about that sequence as well, and we had it in the cast and crew when everyone was watching on Saturday, is that first moment when she stabs him in the neck, you kind of laugh. It's kind of a bit ludicrous, and it's quite heightened, like the way the blood jets out, and it's kind of silly. And then she does it again, and then it carries on, and then it kind of carries on, and it carries on, and you're like,
hear people's reactions changing.
And then they're kind of like, oh, this isn't so funny, and now I feel a bit, this is weird. And then she's like looking at him, and she's kind of terrifying for a moment, and you see the glimpse, and I think to me that's the whole promise of the show, because you have to see that there, and that's what makes you go, I'm so intrigued to keep watching to see what this person will become. And then she kind of snaps back, it's like, oh my God, and what am I going to do, and all that stuff. But you've seen the birth of something inside that I think is so exciting.
That's what happens in Mile End. So.
That's what happens in Mile End stays in Mile End. Julia Blenkinsop, the bully who ruined my life.
I kind of really thought about like who she was in terms of like what Julia would have been like in the past, and for that I kind of thought about my own school experience as like sort of growing up in the East End, going to an all-girls school, which was pretty tough, and I think I took a lot of inspiration from that. And then I just thought about sort of the women I see on social media who I can find quite intimidating because they seem like so incredible. Some of the like lifestyle type influencers, and they just have like seem to have the most amazing like rounded lives, and I think that's who Julia's sort of portraying herself to be, and I think I took a lot of inspo from that. And I mean, the writing in the books and in the scripts, there's just this real like wit and humour that I think is across both of them.
Just planning to murder my school bully and hoping you could help me.
29:59.
It's the framing, it's how brilliant our cast are, you know, especially Norm at the Gazette, played by Jeremy Swift. I mean, some really, really amazing, funny lines. It's the writing, it's the music, it's a tonal thing. But I also think it's slightly, I think British people are funny.
I remember Ella sent a lookbook, like mood board thing, and it had a photograph of a unicorn balloon in a bin outside a high-rise flat, and I was like, okay, that's a good look for this show.
Kind of summed up, for me, the whole kind of, the kind of visual style was summed up by kind of shit Britishness, and I guess it was wanting to do in a way what lots of brilliant shows have done amazingly with like 70s Americana, and I feel like that's been such a wonderful creative source, and we wanted to do that with a kind of 90s small town British nostalgia.
I think that it's a rhythm, it's like, it's a pacing thing, it's kind of like it's gonna sound really like pretentious and actory, but it is sort of like it's a flow state, and I think it's about, it comes to us naturally, being funny. I think British people have a very dry, quite dark sense of humour, And we use humor as a coping mechanism, and it's when things get heavy, they get intense, and it's like taking a breath, throwing in like a bit of a dark joke here and there. It allows us all to go, oh yeah, okay, we're fine. It is a coping mechanism for us, and I think that they've done just I think Ella is incredible. I can't say enough things about her. I think she's amazing, and I think she's done an incredible job of making that flow really nicely in the final edit.